I told you.
It is. It's a good video. It's a simple message
Yes,
and very well illustrated.
yes,
Uh,
that's right.
yeah, the message is very clear. Inequality brings social problems.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Mm.
GDP per
No.
capita, it doesn't affect anything at all for this kind of, very lot of problems. His problem is inequality, he said, right?
Yes. Exactly. Yeah, it's
This,
inequality within societies, not between societies, that determine uh, how people do with all kinds of in relation to
mm,
all kinds of social factors. Um, but yeah, like trust and volunteering within society and a lot of other elements that determine cohesion within society. We can see that egalitarian societies
mm,
like Sweden, like Japan, like other Scandinavian countries are
mm,
doing better across the board when it comes to social cohesion.
mm,
And uh, what he also underlines is that basically a country like Sweden is totally different than a country like Japan. Um, they are both egalitarian, but for example, the income gap in Sweden is much larger than in Japan, but taxation in Sweden is much more
mm,
progressive, which means that it doesn't really matter, and also like involvement, participation of women in the workforce, etc., is much higher in Sweden than in Japan.
mm.
The role of family, etc., is different. But if you compare Sweden and Japan. Okay, so what he shows is it's basically the importance of equality within societies to create cohesion. Reduces a lot of problems that we see within society, from ranging from child obesity to perception of trust in other people, homicides, the number of people who are incarcerated in society. So it's across the board that societies who have of an income gap, less of a gap between the richest people and the poorest people, they score better across the board. Um, Now, Mr. Wilkinson has been criticized for cherry picking his data, for making his graphs look very supportive of his ideas. Um, the same as Piketty, by the way. But what he shows is kind of overwhelming, and I think that criticism in this path, there may be some truth to it, and there may be some questions that we cannot expect if we look at data that there, especially in social sciences, that there will be 100% correlation, but there is a compelling case to believe what he is arguing. I believe it's kind of similar to the influence of pollution and climate change. There may be some cases where we see contradictory data, but overall, it seems very compelling to actually believe what's going on. It's the same here. So yes, there may be some cases where the opposite is true, but overall, it seems like um, more egalitarian states do better. And yeah, I think that's an important message in the bigger picture of our discussion. We have been talking about basically populism, where it comes from, and one of the reasons was because of inequality within societies, because of the growing gap between rich and poor, people blaming basically immigrants, blaming the EU, blaming the NAFTA, blaming um, well, basically the others, people who are disappointed, who haven't seen their income raised, who see their position, they're losing their position within society. That has led to populism and one of the drivers of populism is income inequality within societies. You saw, for example, in the United States, where they believe that income inequality is the driver of economic success. The American dream is the driver of success, but we see that actually the problems within the American society are overrepresented in mental health, in incarcerations, in all kinds of child obesity, in social immobility. All these things seem to hold true, and I think that is a very important message, and that's why I included it in this series.
That's right. And this video, I just find out that Singapore is the largest gap they have. Right? I didn't know that. I thought the United States is the biggest gap they have, but actually Singapore is the biggest. And
there are probably a lot of, especially newly developing countries, where the income gap is very high. Newly developing countries, I think even for China, the income gap is very high. But also countries like Indonesia, Philippines, probably even probably you know better than us, but income inequality in Malaysia, those countries will be very pronounced because there is a general tendency for countries to say, okay, we need a few people to raise the GDP of a country. And then the rest will follow.
That's right.
That was, yeah.
I agree with you. China is also top 20% is they are 10,000, more than 10,000 US dollars, but bottom 50 is about they 2,000. More than 60%, 70% is average is 5,000. So yes, that's right. You said right. And the Philippines and Indonesia have big gap. They are poor people or rich people. They just extreme, two extremes. No middle income. Right? Malaysia, I don't know. Najib, I think he managed that country. Rich people more richer, but Mahathir changed his strategy for their country. But still, I don't know. They have that Malaysia has lots of middle income people instead of rich and poor. Vietnam is, I think, exactly like similar to Japan, because socialist company, not like China. China is not socialistic income distribution. China is rich is rich, right? Vietnam is not like that. Not yet. Maybe they're going to more similar to China, but not yet. And very few people, rich people are very few, right?
Yeah.
So Asian countries diversified, not the same. But Singapore is, I didn't know that, 10 times more richer than poor people. I don't know.
But it's kind of logical, I believe, because probably because the existence of a very limited group of very wealthy people, they need to be supported by low-wage workers who take care of their household, of construction, of cleaning, of all the work that they are not willing to do. That attracts a lot of people from surrounding countries who are looking for a better future in Singapore. So it's probably because of the enormous wealth of the top layer that attracts people from the lower echelons of surrounding countries into Singapore. You probably see the same thing in Kuwait or countries like that. A lot of construction workers from Bangladesh and what have you take care of all the labor, manual labor, who are not paid very high salary, live under rather poor circumstances, but they create a huge income gap. as a side effect of the wealth of the top layer.
By the way, what is okay? I understand his message, okay, and main income gap inequality, like country who has big inequality, they have lots of problem, any kind of problem they have. So they need to consider for more, not pure equality, but more, closer gap among rich and poor. So what he said, right?
Right.
So this is, I think, current how we're going to stabilize the society. We need to consider more equalized income rather than increasing income gap, right?
Yes.
So he didn't tell the action what we should going to take, but his recommendation is we try to more closer income gap.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
So we discussed before. One of the issues we need to consider universal basic income, and the other issue is okay, we're going to increase tax like Sweden, but tax avoidance will occur at the personal level, so not easy to consider for increasing tax rate.